She won't last long anyway. Let her keep paying for now. That's what my son said, about me, to his wife, and he wasn't whispering. He said it casually, like he was talking about weather or trash day, as if I were already gone, as if my bones didn't ache just a room away, as if I hadn't helped raise him into the man he now used to dismiss me. My name is Elaine Marks, and I'm 67 years old. I used to be a librarian before my knees gave out and my pension kicked in. I lost my husband, Leonard, 6 years ago. Slow cancer, slow goodbyes. I stayed strong through it all. And when it ended, I didn't cry loud. I folded his sweaters, donated his shoes, and made my tea the same way he liked it. Lemon. No sugar. Just warmth. A year after he passed, my son Mark called. His voice was light, rushed. Mum, Tara and I, well, we're between places. We need somewhere temporary. I didn't hesitate. Of course I didn't. What mother would? They moved into my our home, within the week. I gave them the master bedroom. I set the thermostat warmer because Tara complained of drafts. I adjusted, tucked myself into corners, and told myself this was family. I told myself I was lucky to have my son close, to have grandchildren in the house again, to feel needed. And in truth, there were moments that felt like love, Sunday pancakes, baby giggles, the way Mark would sometimes say, "Thanks, Ma," after I folded their laundry or stocked their fridge. But over time, it became clearer. I was no longer Elaine, the mother who once held his fevered forehead through nights. I was convenience a utility. They started leaving their unopened bills on the hallway console. My name was on the accounts anyway. Groceries came out of my card. So did the gas. So did the streaming subscriptions. They needed just a little help until they got back on their feet. But months turned to a year, and comfort turned into expectation. Still, I stayed quiet. Then came the night I heard it. I'd been in bed, half asleep, when I remembered I'd left the kettle on. I crept downstairs. Old bones, soft steps, no slippers, just instinct. And I heard their voices from the living room. The lights were dim. The kids were asleep. But Mark and Tara were laughing over something. I was about to smile, until I heard my name. "She's still got her pension, right?" "Yeah," Mark replied. "She won't last long anyway. Let her keep paying for now." No pause, no guilt, just dismissal. My breath caught in my throat. It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and squeezed until my ribs cracked. My son, the boy I once rocked to sleep with lullabies, the man I made birthday cakes for until his 30s, was now planning his life around my end, not just expecting it, waiting for it. I didn't move. I couldn't. The tile felt cold under my feet. My hand tightened around the banister. I thought if I let go, I'd collapse. I don't know how long I stood there. Could have been 30 seconds. Could have been an hour. Time loses shape when your heart breaks like that. They kept talking, their voices fading into other topics, something about taking a vacation next spring. I backed away from the hallway, silent, careful not to let the stairs creak. I slipped back into my bedroom like a ghost and sat on the edge of my bed. Everything in my mind began unraveling, not like a thread pulled free. No, like a net, fraying all at once. The late-night pharmacy runs when Tara had a cold, the time Mark's car was about to be repossessed and I dipped into my emergency fund. The hundreds of quiet kindnesses I'd offered, without ever making a tally. And yet, to them, I was a ticking clock, a temporary solution, an old woman too dumb to know her place. I stared at the ceiling that night, fingers clenched into the blanket. The fan spun slow circles overhead, each rotation slicing through the illusion I had wrapped myself in. I had let them believe I was weak. I had played small to keep the peace. I had smiled through the insults. All for what? So I could hear my expiration date served up like a footnote? I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply sat. and I decided something. If I was going to fade, I'd do it on my own terms. They thought I wouldn't last long. They were about to find out just how long I could stand once I stopped holding them up. The next morning, the house smelled like bacon and toast, but none of it tasted the same. Mark walked past me at the kitchen counter and ruffled my shoulder like I was a house pet. Tara chirped her usual, "Morning, Elaine," like she hadn't been part of the conversation that gutted me open the night before. I smiled. I nodded. I asked about the kids. I played my role. But inside, something had gone still. Not dead, but dangerously quiet. It was the kind of silence a woman discovers after decades of pouring herself into people who hand her back scraps of gratitude, the kind of silence that doesn't scream or cry. It watches, learns, plots. That morning, while Tara took the twins to preschool and Mark worked from his home office, which used to be my sewing room, I pulled out my notebook. The old blue one with a broken spiral edge and the words, "Do not forget," scrawled in my late husband's handwriting. I flipped it open and began a list. Gasmark hadn't paid the bill once in the last 9 months. Electricity still under my name. Water. Also mine internet streaming. All billed through my card phone plans. I'd added them temporarily when they couldn't afford upgrades. Property tax, I paid it last December. Car insurance. Mark's was bundled under mine to save money. Line by line, I realized something they hadn't. They weren't carrying me. I was carrying them. I wasn't a burden. I was the infrastructure. That afternoon, I sat at my desk by the window, the same one where I used to journal before the house got so crowded. I started making calls, quiet ones, calm ones. I called the electric company first. "Yes, I'd like to remove my name from the account," I said, my voice firm but kind. "No, I don't need to transfer it. Just cancel effective the 5th. "Are you sure, Ma'am?" the woman asked. "That'll shut off service to the entire address." I smiled. "Yes, I'm sure." Next was the water utility, then gas, then the phone provider. Each call was like cutting a tether. I felt lighter, stronger. Not because I wanted to punish them, but because I finally wanted to stop being punished for loving them. Some reps tried to talk me out of it. One even asked, "Ma'am, do you live at the residence?" "I used to," I replied. "Now I just exist there." By the end of the day, I had cancelled or removed myself from every single service that kept that house running. That night at dinner, Mark complained the Wi-Fi was glitching. "Is the router acting up again?" he muttered. "I'm not sure," I said, taking a sip of my tea. "Maybe it just needs restarting." I didn't lie. I just didn't tell him I'd scheduled the shut-off for the following Tuesday at 6 a.m. Later that evening, when everyone was asleep, I stood in the hallway and stared at the framed family photo they'd taken at my last birthday. Mark had his arm around Tara. Tara was smiling like a pageant winner. The kids were looking the wrong way. And I looked like I didn't belong in my own home. I went back into my room and opened my bottom dresser drawer. From beneath a stack of old nightgowns, I pulled out my savings binder. I flipped through tabs marked medical, emergency, and final expenses, all intact. My will, signed and notarized. My accounts, separate, every bill they depended on, tied to me, and now coming loose. They thought I was old and harmless. They forgot I was raised by a war widow who taught me how to fight without ever lifting my voice. The next morning, I went to the bank, quiet as ever. "I'd like to unbundle this account," I told the clerk. "I no longer wish to be associated with any joint or dependent users." He frowned. "Even your son's credit card?" "Especially my son's," I said. I walked out with a new debit card, a revised will, and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. They had planned their future around the idea that I wouldn't be in it. Now they were about to get what they wished for, only not the way they hoped. When I returned home, Tara was in the living room watching a home renovation show, giggling to herself. "Oh, Elaine," she said without turning her head. Mark and I were just saying we should knock out the wall between the dining room and kitchen. Make it more open concept. What do you think? I looked at her. I saw it then. Not a daughter-in-law, not family, just a tenant in a house she never earned. You'll have plenty of time to think about that soon, I said softly. She glanced over, confused. What do you mean? I smiled. I mean, things are about to change. That's all. I went back to my room and locked the door behind me. They thought I wouldn't last long. They were about to find out what it's like when the power they thought was theirs starts slipping through their fingers. The first outage hit on a Tuesday morning. It was still dark out, that soft blue just before dawn. I was already up. Habit, really. Age teaches you that peace lives in the quiet hours. I'd just poured my tea when I heard the first confused thud from upstairs. Mark shuffled into the kitchen a few minutes later, groggy and annoyed. Internet's down again, he muttered. Router must have reset. Can you check it? I looked up from the crossword I was pretending to fill out. I think it's more than the router. He blinked. What does that mean? Maybe you should call the provider, I said gently, sipping my tea. He scowled, already typing. I watched his face pale slightly as he read the message on the app. Dot account cancelled. Service terminated. No active billing user. Did you forget to pay it? He asked, voice a little too sharp for breakfast. I don't handle that anymore, I said without looking up. He stood there for a moment, lips parted like a child caught lying, then turned and stormed back upstairs. By noon, Tara called out, Elaine, the gas stove won't light. I didn't answer. That night, they ordered takeout. Again. And Mark spent 2 hours on the phone trying to restore services. But customer support doesn't move mountains for names that don't appear on accounts. And Mark's didn't. Wednesday, the water slowed. By Thursday, the heat gave out. By Friday, Tara's voice was cracking. I don't understand, she hissed at Mark while they thought I was napping. I thought your mum was still paying for this stuff. She was, Mark snapped. I don't know what she's doing now. Maybe she forgot. I nearly laughed from behind the bedroom door. Forgot? No. I remembered everything. I remembered the first time Mark scraped his knee on our driveway and I ran out barefoot to scoop him up. I remembered the first day of kindergarten when he clung to my scarf like a lifeline. I remembered every forgotten birthday call I still made, every meal I cooked, every bath I gave their colicky baby when Tara said she just couldn't. I didn't forget Dot, they did. They forgot what it cost to be loved without limits. That weekend, the yelling started. Whisper fights turned to closed-door slamming. One night, Tara shouted, You told me she was harmless. And Mark snapped back, She's losing it, okay? She doesn't even know what she's doing. I knocked once on their door. They went dead silent. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said through the wood. And what I'm not doing is paying for your lives anymore. I turned and walked away. The next morning I began packing. Not dramatically, not with anger. Just deliberately, slowly, methodically. I started with my most important papers: passport, birth certificate, pension details, my will, and the deed to the house. Yes, the deed. Still in my name. Always was. I'd never signed over a thing. For all their talk and whispered timelines, they hadn't even checked. They were so sure I'd either die and leave it behind, or forget enough to hand it over. They didn't think I could choose to walk away. Mark knocked on my door that afternoon. Hey, Mum, can we talk? I opened it just a sliver. Of course. He looked tired, his jaw tight, hands tucked in his hoodie. I think there's been some miscommunication. No, I said. I think there's been too much silent assumption. He stared at me. Why are you doing this? I tilted my head. You said I wouldn't last long. I'm just preparing for that. That was a joke, he said quickly. Tara and we didn't mean it like that. You meant it enough to say it when you thought I wasn't listening. He exhaled, the kind that tries to buy time. It's been stressful. I lost hours at work. Tara's been overwhelmed. Things come out wrong sometimes. That's not the first thing that's come out wrong, I said, stepping out fully. The way she talks about my furniture like it's hers to replace. The way you hand me receipts without even asking. The way you've taken over this home like I'm just passing through. I thought we were a family, he said. I nodded. So did I. He had no answer for that. That evening, I removed my name from the homeowner's insurance policy and scheduled a cancellation for the automatic payments covering their car. I left the policy intact until the end of the month. I'm not cruel, but I'm done being captive kindness. That night, as the cold crept in, Tara knocked on my door for the first time in weeks. "Elaine, can we talk?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. I opened the door, half expecting a performance, but she stood there, arms crossed like a defensive teenager. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said. I looked at her and saw a woman used to getting her way, not apologizing, not understanding. "You didn't mean to hurt me," I echoed. "But you did, and you kept doing it. That's the part I can't live with." She blinked, unsure how to respond. "You thought I was weak," I said. "You were wrong." And then I closed the door. Not slammed, not locked dot, just closed. Because some doors don't need drama, they just need to stay shut. The last week I spent in that house, I didn't speak much, not out of spite, out of purpose. Silence, I've learned, is its own kind of siren. It unsettles people who are used to your compliance. It makes them wonder what you know, what you've decided, what you're about to take from them. Mark and Tara tiptoed around me like I was a candle they were trying not to blow out. Their tones softened, their smiles returned, but it was too late. Not because I was angry. I wasn't. I was done. And done is quieter than rage. That Monday morning, I called the county assessor's office and updated my permanent address. I submitted a notarized form to revise all forwarding mail, my new address. A quiet one-bedroom unit at a senior co-op across town. Private, clean, and paid in full, up front. I didn't need much. Just space that was mine, and silence that wasn't laced with cruelty. While they were out running errands, I met with my lawyer, Evelyn, at a cafe on 8th Street. She was younger than I expected, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the kind of confidence that didn't need noise. I handed her the packet, the title to the house, the shut-off notices, proof of their usage, and the list of accounts I'd removed myself from. "You've got them in a chokehold," she said, flipping through the documents. I sipped my coffee. "I'm not trying to strangle them. I'm just done being the rope they swing from." She nodded slowly. "Fair. What do you want to do about the house?" "I'm not giving it to them. I want to rent it out. Lease agreement, short term, 6 months at most." "Perfect," she said. "I know someone who's been searching for a place like that. Nurse, divorced, 2 kids, very respectful. That sounds like someone who'd value it." Mark and Tara came home later that evening with takeout, loud and cheerful, like it was 2019 again, and I hadn't heard their betrayal echo through the hallway just days earlier. "Mum," Mark said, setting the food on the counter. "We thought we'd have a family night, like old times." Tara smiled. "We got your favorite, lemon chicken and jasmine rice." I sat down and looked at the bag. "Smells nice." They both seemed relieved, as if that olive branch paid for on my old credit card might buy back the mother I used to be. But that version of me had packed her bags already. Over dinner they made small talk, about the kids, the car, something about a potential refinance. I nodded, where appropriate. And then Mark asked, with a careful glance at Tara, "Hey, when are you going to get the heat sorted? It's freezing at night." I dabbed my mouth with the napkin and said, "I'm not. The account is closed." He blinked. "Closed? What do you mean closed?" "I cancelled all my service connections last week. Everything's off my name." You what?" Tara said, voice pitched. Why would you do that? Because, I said gently, I'm moving out this Friday, and I won't be leaving anything behind this time. Not my bills, not my name, not my dignity. Mark set down his fork with a clatter. You're not serious. I'm already packed. Tara's eyes widened. Wait, what are we supposed to do? Whatever you'd planned to do when I didn't last long, I said. The silence that followed was a chasm. Mark swallowed hard. We didn't mean that. You weren't supposed to hear it. But I did, I replied. And it wasn't the first crack. It was just the one that finally split the floor. He leaned back in his chair, stunned. I stood. Dinner was lovely. Thank you. I went to my room and closed the door. The next morning, Tara banged on it. You can't just walk away from your own family. This is our home too. I opened the door slowly. No, Tara. This was my home. You treated it like a bridge, not a foundation. And I was the planks under your feet. But I'm not obligated to be stepped on forever. Later that afternoon, I met Evelyn again to sign the lease for the new tenant. By Saturday morning, they'd be getting keys. A woman named Tasha and her 2 sons. I'd seen pictures. She'd asked if I'd mind a small herb garden in the back. I told her that would be lovely. That night, Mark came into my room while I was folding one last sweater. Are you really going? He asked, quieter than I've heard him in years. I nodded. You made it clear I wasn't meant to stay. He rubbed his temples. We didn't mean it that way. It got said. And it got heard, I said, placing the sweater in my suitcase. Words don't unsay themselves, Mark. You're not a boy anymore. You don't get to break something and pretend it was just an accident. I never thought you'd actually leave. I zipped the suitcase closed. That's because you thought I needed you more than I respected myself. I slept soundly that night. No lingering dread, no tension in my chest. Just peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop bleeding for people who hand you the knife. Friday morning came colder than expected. The frost clung to the front porch railings, and the yard looked like it had taken a deep breath and never let it go. I stood in the kitchen one last time, drinking my tea from the same mug I'd used since Leonard passed the one with the little chip on the rim and faded blue flowers. It was the only thing left that still felt like mine in that house. Everything else had been repurposed, claimed, or expected. I heard footsteps upstairs, hurried, frantic. Tara shouting something about keys, Mark muttering. I didn't move. I'd already loaded my suitcase in the back seat the night before. The front door opened at 9:12 a.m. sharp. Evelyn stepped in, followed by Tasha, the new tenant, and her 2 sons, one tall and shy, the other a chatterbox with an armful of Lego bricks. The house that had once suffocated under forced gratitude suddenly felt full of life again. Mark stormed downstairs the moment he saw strangers in the foyer. Who are they? He demanded. I didn't answer. I just picked up the envelope I'd left on the hallway console, the lease agreement legally binding, fully executed. This is a joke, right? Tara said, following behind him, her voice shrill. You're renting out the house to strangers? To someone who asked nicely, I replied. To someone who didn't count down my life like a bank withdrawal. Tasha looked at me, unsure. Should we come back later? I shook my head and offered a warm smile. No, dear, this is your home now. Just give me 5 more minutes to finish up. Tasha nodded gently and stepped aside. Mark looked like he wanted to argue, but the words didn't come. Tara just kept staring at the rental agreement in her hands, flipping pages like she could undo them by reading faster. You can't do this, she said finally. You don't have the right. I turned to her. I have every right. This house is mine, has been. And after everything you said, everything I heard, you lost the privilege of calling it yours in any way. Mark's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. You're seriously leaving us homeless? No, I said plainly. I'm just refusing to keep pretending I'm a doormat. They stood in the doorway as I took one last look at the hallway. The baby photos, the scuff marks near the baseboards, the coat hook that Leonard installed crooked and never bothered to fix. I turned to Tasha. The porch swing creaks in the wind, but it's sturdy. Just oil the chains every spring. The magnolia tree out back. Leonard and I planted it. She blooms best in April. Tasha smiled. We'll take care of it. I know, I said, and with that, I handed her the keys. Mark finally snapped. This is insane, Mum. You're tearing the family apart. I paused at the doorway and turned. No, Mark. You did that. I just stopped taping it back together. Tara folded her arms, her voice icy. Where are you even going to go? You don't have family left. I smiled. I have myself. That's more than enough. And I walked out. No tears, no shouting. Just a woman reclaiming what had always been hers. By 10:05 a.m., I was on the road. I didn't turn on music. I didn't need to drown anything out. The silence in my car felt earned like a reward for every time I bit my tongue to keep the peace. I drove across town to the senior co-op, a charming little cluster of connected cottages with white shutters and freshly trimmed hedges. My unit was modest, but it had something the house hadn't held in years: freedom. The manager met me at the office and handed over the welcome packet. We stocked your fridge with the basics, she said kindly, and the ladies next door are already planning to invite you for lunch. I thanked her and took a slow walk around the building, letting my body breathe for the first time in what felt like years. That afternoon, I received a barrage of texts. From Mark. Where did you go? We need to talk. From Tara. We have rights. You can't just dump us like this. From a number I didn't recognize. You're cruel. You ruined your own son's life. I read them, then deleted them. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because they'd stopped listening a long time ago. Instead, I spent that evening unpacking only the things I loved: Leonard's old flannel shirt, my puzzle books, a photo of me in my wedding dress, and the kettle. I made myself a small dinner, sat out on the little patio, and let the early evening settle in. A bird chirped from a telephone line. Somewhere nearby, a wind chime rang. I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be used up. I felt present, solid, still mine. It didn't take long. By Monday morning, I got the first real sign they understood what had happened. A knock at my new door. Not Thema Courier. He handed me an envelope. Inside, a formal letter from Mark, printed and signed. No apologies. Just a request. Please consider returning to the house, or at least helping us cover bills while we adjust. We're in a very fragile place right now. What happened wasn't malicious. It was just stress, poorly timed words, and pressure. We need support. You're our mother. I sat back in the kitchen chair and let the letter fall to the table. It landed beside the lavender I'd trimmed that morning. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just reached for my pen, pulled out a sheet of stationery, and wrote 6 words. I gave until it broke me. No return address, no sign-off. I sealed it and sent it back. That afternoon, Evelyn called. You might want to know, your son tried to file a complaint with the tenant board, claims emotional distress and coercion. Let them, I said. He was always good at looking pitiful when the spotlight turned on. She chuckled. Don't worry, we're covered. You're protected. They'll get nothing. Good, I said. That's what they gave me. Later that week, I found myself in the small reading room at the co-op, curled up with an old mystery novel, when a woman named Georgia approached me. She wore oversized glasses, floral pants, and smelled faintly of orange peels. You're the one who moved out of that big place on Eldridge Lane, right? She asked. I nodded cautiously. My niece said you did it with class, she said. Said you walked out without yelling, without slamming a single door. Said you just disappeared. I smiled faintly. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is leave quietly. She gave a knowing laugh. Well, if you ever want to join our garden club, we could use someone who knows when to dig deep and when to walk away. I joined the next morning. But peace doesn't mean erasure. It was around week 3 when the phone rang. The number I didn't recognize had a local area code. Something told me to answer. Hello? There was silence on the other end. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years, at least not like this. Shaky. Hollow. Mum? I didn't answer right away. It's me. Mark. I know, I said softly. We lost the car. Couldn't make the payments. Internet's still off. We're crashing at one of Tara's cousins for now, but she's talking about leaving. Says I should have handled things differently. Says I ruined everything. I waited. I don't know what to do. I kept breathing. You raised me better than this, Mum. I don't know how I let it get this bad. I never wanted to hurt you. You were just always there. I thought. He trailed off. I know what you thought, I said. You thought I'd never stop giving. You thought I didn't know how. I'm sorry. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. I believe you, but apologies don't rebuild burned bridges. They just explain where the fire started. Can I see you? No, I said quietly. Not even once. You've already seen enough of me, Mark. The version who paid your bills. The one you thought didn't hear what you said. The one who smiled through it. You saw her. You just didn't recognize the cost. He was crying now, quietly, the way grown men cry when the weight of their choices finds them alone. I miss you. I miss who you used to be, I replied. But I don't miss the version that used me, and I won't pretend to. More silence. Then, okay. I could hear him breaking, but I didn't break with him. Take care of yourself, I said, and I hung up. That night, I walked out to the shared garden, tucked my hands in my coat pockets, and breathed in the smell of soil and jasmine. Tasha had texted earlier, a picture of the porch, freshly swept, a pumpkin by the door, her boys smiling in the background. Thank you for giving us a home, she'd written. We feel safe here. I stared at the image for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it healed. It's been almost a year now. I keep a small journal just for myself. I write about the wildflowers blooming along the fence line, about George's terrible jokes, and about how silence tastes when it's chosen, not forced. I get occasional updates. Mark's working part-time now. Tara left 3 months after the fallout. No one talks about what really happened. That's fine. Truth has a funny way of lingering, even when people pretend not to see it. Sometimes I look at my old house on Google Maps, just to see if the magnolia tree is still standing. It is. And so am I. There's a note taped inside my kitchen cabinet door now. Just a single quote I copied from the last letter Leonard ever wrote to me. When the people around you forget your worth, don't argue. Just remove the parts of yourself they've grown used to relying on, and leave quietly. That's what I did. They said I wouldn't last long. They were right. I didn't last. Where I wasn't loved,